There's a war on for your mind.
I'm trying to find the famous Alexander Solzhenitsyn quote about, oh, how we burned in the camps. Probably find it, but we've been looking on Google, having some trouble, but I know it's posted on prisonplanet.com and Infowars.com. We posted it years ago, but it's in some archive. Here's the Solzhenitsyn quotes. A state of war only serves as an excuse for domestic tyranny. If one is forever cautious, can one remain a human being? Man has set for himself the goal of conquering the world, but in the process loses his soul. The name of reform simply covers what is latently a process of theft of the national heritage. Violence can only be concealed by a lie, and the lie can only be maintained by violence. You only have power over people so long as you don't take everything away from them. But when you've robbed a man of everything, he's no longer in your power, he's free again. And they kind of stole that in V for Vendetta. But that's absolutely true. And when they steal your soul, when they steal your sovereignty, when they make you live in a lie, when they brainwash you, you are a slave. Become free, my friends. Everything we talk about here is documented. I want to just set up this interview with a few comments, then we're going to go to Pastor Revere. He said just call him Pastor, but I'll call him Pastor Revere. They have access to the students on the playground and at lunch. They have them write dossiers on their parents, what's in the medicine cabinet. You understand, folks? There are congressmen saying confiscating guns during emergencies are good. There's a state rep in Oklahoma saying gun confiscation is good and needs to happen during emergencies. I had a head professor on from the Homeland Security Department of a major university in Tennessee. They're in Knoxville just a few months ago, remember? And he admitted that he's the head volunteer of this program, recruiting people to fight terror and crime, to report on their neighbors. All of this is going on. Now, under FEMA, we know they have a program to, quote, reach out to the churches, and you see the billboards about, quote, get ready. Ready.gov and all this, and the surface is just get ready for your house to be prepared and what to do in an emergency, have some food. But when you actually go to these meetings, we've been to these in Austin, we have video of this. The Ritter shot video of it, but wouldn't let me have it for a film for some reason. Maybe I should beg them again, get them to give it to me. But it's the same stuff in that terror manual from Texas. The feds wrote about people wearing blue jeans, people that have cell phones, people that are nice to the police, those that make frequent references to the U.S. Constitution. That's in the Arizona manual. The Virginia manual says everything in it. It says property rights activists. Manuals in Michigan say all homeschoolers are terrorists. Federal manuals like Project Megiddo say it. It's all there. And I appreciate the pastor holding while I set this up. We have the documents. They've been confirmed by Pastor Butch and other pastors. This pastor is at senior level in this now as a patriot informant, a spy against these enemies. And we'll call him Pastor Revere. He's in Ohio. That's as much as we'll tell you. He joins us now to give you inside details of the oath they give to FEMA. Because people know the preachers are trusted. And they're setting the preachers up as Judas Iscariot, Judas goats. A Judas goat, for those that raise goats or sheep, is the ram. And he's a ram that is trusted by the other goats or sheep, depending on what species. But you've got rams in both varieties. You've got the billy goats in both varieties. And they are trained to lead occasionally for the slaughter or the sale, because people do also slaughter these for meat, lamb chops or goat. Again, these two different species, but they have them, again, both in goats and sheep, and I'm getting too technical on that. The point is, it leads them in to be sheared, it leads them in to be killed, it leads them in to be sold, and that's what they're trying to do. It is so devilish. And we are pleased to be joined by Pastor Revere. I'm giving him that name. Pastor, thank you for coming on with us, sir.
It's a definite pleasure to do this.
I appreciate you letting me give folks the background on this. Tell us as much about yourself, what you first heard from them, the documents, the oath, what you've been witnessing.
I'll try not to make it lengthy, but you know how that is.
No, sir, we've got the whole hour if you've got the time. Take your time.
Brother, I've got the time.
Okay, go ahead.
In March of this year, I was invited to attend a meeting, a local meeting of the Emergency Management Agency. That we call it the local FEMA people. I was invited to come because I had done disaster relief work with another church denominational group years ago, and I wanted to see what was going on. They were planning for any kind of bioterrorism, they said, so I wanted to find out what it was, it being FEMA. And since we know the director, it got me in real good.
Again, I want to add, on the surface it all sounds reasonable. Oh, just emergency planning. That's on the billboards and the literature. Yeah. You go to these meetings. Tell us what happened.
That was wonderful stuff when they started out, but it it immediately turned into this is for a natural disaster, a tornado, flood, or any act of bioterrorism, or a nationally declared emergency. And so I lit up to that one, and the spokesperson there was from the state FEMA office, who also is the trainer for pastors in their training program for pastors. He said, your job, pastors, is to get to your congregations and preach to them Romans 13. And that's the part that says you obey the higher powers. And he was saying you have to teach them to obey their governments.
By the way, Hitler did that. He had a cohort of preachers that preached Romans 13 out of context.
Yes, he did. And this is what he wanted us to do. And so he's telling us that. He's telling us, and the thing that really got us started on this, and when I started contacting people, is when he said the problem with local enforcement of a federal or state mandate that is quarantine or relocation, and these are the terms he used, or a declaration of martial law based on whatever disaster it might be.
He said martial law. Let's be clear.
Yes, he did. And he said if it goes the distance, the problem is all along the way is this so-called cowboy mentality, and you pastors are going to have to learn to quell that cowboy mentality. And so I asked him what he meant. He said, the individualistic effort that stands up and said, this is my property, you'll pry guns from my cold, dead hand kind of thing. And everybody laughed. There were only about 6 people there. And he said, we're talking about law enforcement. That's a law enforcement issue. We're talking about you pastors going there because you know the people, you all are trusted, and you'll be preaching this ahead of time. You can stand in the neighborhoods and tell people this is for their own good. This will
Got to stop you. You would have been preaching this ahead of time. Folks, this means they're going with it. This is happening nationwide. We know there's this FEMA preacher leadership program going on. We know we've talked to other preachers now since Butch Paul broke this a few months ago with you, Pastor. This is real, folks. This is so evil. Please continue.
This is deadly real. And that was our first meeting. The second meeting pretty much carried it through with our responsibility as pastors is to have training. And this man, who is a Seventh-day Adventist pastor, he's also on a national organization for disaster relief. He's also working with DHS and FEMA. He's on their payroll. We just found this out last week. He said that your pastor's jobs are going to be to deal with the individuals, not just in counseling, but you're going to have to control some folks who may not be so cooperative. He said, but that's going to be a law enforcement issue. You'll be backed by that. And he said, besides, pastors aren't trained to handle everything.
Imagine preachers leading SWAT teams. I mean, we're talking.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That's terrible, isn't it? But that's the picture we get. We get the picture that me and others who are aware of this, that we're going to be standing at some farmer's end of his lane while he's standing there with his double barrel wherever he's got, telling him to lay the arms down. They have to confiscate your cows, your chickens, your. And
he's got to be relocated to a camp. Now, for those that don't know. Right here in Austin, we've confirmed some of the biggest churches are now FEMA officers secretly. Now imagine how Soviet this is, how Red Dawn this is, where you go to church and little do you know this guy is an actual servant of the Antichrist beast system.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right. And this is what's so frightening. It started out. He made it sound like it was a local thing that we were doing, and we're the pioneers, we're the first one.
They always say that.
They always say that, and I knew what was coming. Just last week there was training for pastors, which we'll get into at some point. I haven't faxed you the training manual. The training manual pretty much keeps pastors down by telling us we cannot handle all these mental health issues.
Now I know Butch has some of that. If you will, during a break, Pastor, can you? I got some of those, but will you can you fax that to me during a break if I give you the number?
I'll sure try to do that, yes.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
That'll be great. We were told then that we can't handle everything, so there'll be the professionals there helping us out. But we were told we would have to take mental health training. And to make it palatable to the other pastors, and these are their words now, that we won't call it mental health, we'll call it spiritual care. And so they've renamed everything. Instead of mental health and disaster relief, it's spiritual care.
When we get back, we'll get into the forced drugging. Armed squads with preachers there to brainwash the public with pills to make you submit. It doesn't get any more Soviet than this. Stay there, Pastor. I know I'm ranting. This is just so upsetting. This is 11th hour. Nationwide, it's going on right now. We'll be right back. Stay with us.